Hello and welcome to the Unnamed Automotive Podcast. My name is Sami Hajjasad, and with me, as always, is my good friend and fellow automotive journalist, Benjamin Hunting. Say hi to the people, Ben.
Greetings to all corporeal and non-corporeal listeners.
Greetings to everyone. If this is the first time you're listening to our podcast, thank you for trying something new. I really appreciate it, and Benjamin does too. You can find Ben's work all over the internet. Trust me on this, but he can also vouch for his own work, and he can tell you exactly where to find his latest articles. Ben, go for it.
Sure, you can find my work at Motor Trend, at driving.ca, and at Haggerty.
And you can find my work at autotrader.ca, driving.ca, and Capital One's Auto Navigator. Ben, we've got some interesting cars to talk about this week, don't we?
Yes, indeed we do.
And I think you're going to start our show off because you sound prepared for it.
I sound prepared?
Yeah.
How does one sound prepared? Is it just speaking with authority? Is it the equivalent of walking down the hallway with a set of keys in your hand and just no one questions you because they assume you're going to unlock a door? Have you ever done that?
No.
It's a great way to, if you're somewhere you're not supposed to be.
And you think I'm doing that often.
And you don't want people to question why you're there. Just like have a set of keys in your hand with one of the keys out. And then people just assume you're going to a destination that you have the authority to access.
I always appreciated the George Costanza approach of if you just look frustrated at work, nobody will question that you're working.
I mean, I haven't had a job since 2004, so I can't really say whether that's accurate or not.
That's true. And every time I call you, you're in a good mood. So.
Oh yeah, I'm Mr. Smiles, Dr. Sunshine, Hair Professor Dr. Giggles.
Is that what you are today?
There is a movie called Dr. Giggles that I don't recommend.
Is that a PG movie?
No, it's a horror movie.
Okay. Yeah. Ben, talk to me about the pickup truck you drove this week.
I drove several pickup trucks, Sammy.
Okay.
But they're all called Maverick.
Okay.
That's a long silence that you're supposed to fill.
I was supposed to do something with that?
That's how that works. It's a back and forth. Where
you're talking, of course, about the 2025 or 26 Ford Maverick,
which is the conversational ball, and the other returns the volley.
Ben, I've been a little sick lately. Okay, cut me some slack here.
I drove the 2025 Maverick, and I know normally you'd be like, Benjamin, don't you drive Mavericks all the time?
Yeah, don't you? Don't you drive like 4 a year or 5 a year?
Not as much as I would like to, but the reason this one's worth talking about is because Ford made some changes for 2025, and I want to zero in on 2 of those. The first one is, they actually made... They made more than...
I can see you. You put yourself in a corner here, man.
No, well, the thing is, it's kind of a mid-cycle refresh, so there's some styling changes. There's now like 6 different grills you can get for the Maverick. They did.
What does that compare to the Ranger and F-150? Isn't that too many grills?
Well, it's
they have more grills than they have actual truck models now.
They have, yes, and they have a bunch of new wheels and stuff, and some new interior designs. But the real interesting part of the lineup is now there is the all-wheel drive version of the hybrid.
Okay, this is very good because in the past, or at least when it first came out, the hybrid was only offered on front-wheel drive models.
Yes,
and then you could only get all-wheel drive on the up cost or whatever you want to call it, the optional extra turbocharged engine, right?
Yeah. So if you could either have fuel efficiency or you could have all-wheel drive, but you couldn't have both of those 2 things, which is too bad because the thing that I like, I find that the hybrid version of the Maverick is the most compelling version of the Maverick because the fuel mileage is really great. Like 5 liters per 100 kilometers is not out of the picture on a vehicle like that. And that's pretty impressive.
I also love that because it's 5 liters per 100 kilometers for a vehicle that is actually practical when you need it to be. So maybe when you're hauling stuff or putting stuff, when you're hauling stuff, that range might drop. But like whenever you're not being punished for driving a pickup truck, which is the case, I think, with usual full-size or mid-range pickup trucks.
So the other thing that you were kind of being punished for if you went for the Maverick hybrid was tow rating was down. And that wasn't just because of the drivetrain. It had more to do with the lack of all-wheel drive, because in the US, you could get a front-wheel drive EcoBoost version of the Maverick, which I think was never sold in Canada. I think they were all-wheel drive up here. And that one only had 2,000 pounds of towing, or like roughly around that, which is what you were limited to with the hybrid front-wheel drive as well. But now that the all-wheel drive system is available across the board, you can get a 4K towing package, which pushes that to 4,000 pounds. That's good because the average trailer weight, I think, for most people in North America is around 3,500 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And that puts the Maverick in the ballpark of being able to tow like 90% of what people are ever going to tow with a light vehicle. I think that's
3,500.
Yeah, it's right around 3,500. So the limit on the Maverick
that makes
is
a lot
4,000.
of sense. A lot of vehicles just have that tow rating, and it's very weird. Yeah,
it's always right around that. But I mean, that covers a lot of things like a U-Haul trailer or like a small camping trailer or just a utility trailer that has a bunch of junk in it. The other thing to keep in mind is tow rating.
Don't talk about my junk that way.
Well, maybe your junk, if it wasn't junk, wouldn't be in the junk trailer.
I have 3,500 pounds of junk, excuse me.
The tow rating is also tied to how many people you have in the truck too, right? Because it's gross vehicle weight rating. That's what you're playing with here. So a 4,000 pound tow rating gives you 500 pounds of extra on top of the trailer weight. So that's probably like 2 riders that are going along with it. So it keeps the Maverick like well within a safe zone for such a small vehicle. I drove the vehicle, the all-wheel drive version of the hybrid, and it feels pretty much exactly the same as the front-wheel drive model. They both have, I believe it's 191 horsepower total. So it's not super fast, but it's fast enough. You'll be able to merge on the highway. You'll be able to pass people. Where you really notice the lack of power or just how the powertrain is managed is when you accelerate quickly and it's a CVT. So it just like pegs the revs at a very noisy level and you're in the truck and it's like, and you're just kind of stuck there and it's thrashy. And that's when you
get to speed. It just sounds awful. And it's like a completely like disassociative experience.
Now, what I want to talk about is the fact that on a cheap vehicle, I don't mind that. That doesn't bother me. Like a CVT that makes thrashy noises on a vehicle that is intended to be inexpensive, you're going to get there's some give and take with your expectations here. The problem is the Maverick is no longer a cheap vehicle. The base front wheel drive Maverick in the US now starts at $28,000. Which is like
a jump of like $8,000 from when it first came out,
which was 3 or 4 years ago, right? In Canada, it's $37,000.
Oh yeah, not a chance. Goodbye. DOA. That's good.
A lot of money. Now I'm going to build an all-wheel drive one to see how much money it adds, and it's a $2,200 option. So you're essentially at $30,000 for an all-wheel drive hybrid, and that's I want to stress the XL version of the truck, which interior-wise is cheap.
Yeah,
and it has steel wheels and it has everything that makes it look cheap. Now. Again,
I actually like the steel wheels. Stop it.
I'm not a fan. I don't have a problem with a vehicle that looks cheap inside and out if it is actually cheap. But the problem is it's not. $30,000, I have expectations. At that point, you could get a pretty nice crossover, right? Mm-hmm. Something that has a decent interior.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I mean, you could. I think prices are changing all over the place now with every refresh.
But you could still get like a Crosstrek or like a CX-30 or something like that, right?
I think Subaru might have just announced some new pricing changes.
I don't think it's $30,000 US for a base Crosstrek.
Okay.
Because our Canadian Crosstrek wasn't that much money.
It's 26.5.
Yeah, so if you went up to $30,000 on the Crosstrek, you have a decent level of equipment. And I can say that the interior of our base Crosstrek is much nicer than the interior of a base.
Actually, Maverick. Ben, I'm sorry. I have to correct myself. As I go to the current price is $26,500, but when you go to the Subaru Crosstrek and want to build one, it won't let you. It will say MSRPs currently listed on this site are being adjusted and may not apply to all vehicles in retailer inventory. Okay.
That's a tariff thing.
That is a tariff thing. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's a wild card. So that's going to apply to almost every vehicle out there.
Yeah.
In any case, kudos to Maverick for bringing all-wheel drive. Boo to Maverick for being $10,000 more expensive than it should be.
Do you have any more catchphrases?
Even if it had held the line at $25,000, I would still be okay with it. But it didn't. It's a $30,000 all-wheel drive truck, and it's really, really hard for me to recommend it. Like, the Maverick is only compelling in its cheapest form because of how great the fuel economy is and how great the starting price was. The interior and the driving experience are not worthy of a higher purchase price. And I want to extend that to saying, if you go up to like an XLT or a Lariat, which are like more luxurious versions of the truck, the Lariat is $40,000 US.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, and I think it's just under 50 in Canada. At that point, you're much
no chance.
Yeah, it's 48,795.
You're better $50,000 for a Maverick in Canada?
Yeah, if you want it, you can actually get a $50,000 trimmer that starts at $50,300.
No, thank you.
So what I'm saying, I guess, is that there's no luxury experience to be had with this truck.
No.
And if you're going to spend 40,000 US on a vehicle, it should not be on a Maverick. You should be looking at other options at that point. And I think that you have to realistically say, do I get a used full-size truck or mid-size truck if I feel the need for an open cargo bed? Do I start looking at much more comfortable crossovers? Because $40,000 is going to buy you a fair bit. And the other issue too, I'm driving this week a Hyundai Santa Cruz, which is pretty much the only competition to the Ranger, not the Ranger. I can't get out of this Ranger track, to the Maverick. And because there's no competition is why Ford is, confident in raising their prices. For whatever reason, Hyundai has not brought out a hybrid version of the Santa Cruz, even though they have a hybrid version of the Santa Fe that it is based on. There's the turbo version and there's the base version, the regular 4-cylinder engine.
Canadians can't get both engines, can they, or do they? I can't remember. I remember that being an issue in the past.
I don't know, but either way, the price gap between these vehicles has narrowed considerably, and I feel like on the higher trims, the Santa Cruz is nicer inside. So that's another kind of anti-Maverick stance, but the Maverick balances that out with the fuel economy, right? But at least when you're buying a Santa Cruz and you pay a lot of money for a top tier trim, you kind of feel like you're getting something for your money.
Definitely.
And I don't think that that's true of the Maverick anymore.
I don't like that. It feels to me like they knew they had a cheap product. They got a lot of attention early on, and then they did like a bait and switch with like, but now everyone knows it's great, so let's pay us for it, right?
It's profiteering. And unfortunately, I mean, companies are in business to make money, and it's unfortunate that for Ford, I don't really. People are willing to pay this amount of money. Okay. So if you look at
on a Maverick, really?
Yeah. If you look, they couldn't keep them on the lot. Like we couldn't buy a Maverick 2 years ago because there were none available. And on the used market, they hold their value pretty well. So I just don't. It's the lack of competition, right? So even if it's not compelling, people look around and they're like, "Well, what else am I going to get?" There's no other hybrid, so they end up with this.
Right. Okay.
The other version of I drove two other versions of the Maverick. One of them was the Tremor, which is the off-road version. That's the most expensive Maverick you can get. It, as I mentioned, it's 50,000 Canadian. In the States, it's 41. It's a lot of money to spend on a truck that probably isn't going to be used off-road all that much. There's a lot about this truck has a trick rear differential. It has, I guess, aggressive tires, off-road driving modes, all that stuff. I did off-road in it. That's all I did in it. I went through some water. I went up a steep hill. I went through some mud. I drove on some uneven ground. It did everything I needed it to do. It has like the off-road cruise control that you're going to find in most off-road vehicles these days, where you could set a speed and then you only have to use one pedal kind of deal. It's kind of like hill descent control that you can use all the time. Yeah. It does all those things. I just don't see it. I just don't see the Maverick as an off-roader. I think that you're better served with a mid-sized truck at that point. What about
what's it called? A truck. Yes, a mid-sized truck. I was going to go to crossover because I think structurally are the Maverick and Bronco Sports really not that. I think they're not that far off, right?
No, the Maverick has a bit more wheelbase.
Yeah,
that's essentially how it goes. The thing is, this is the wilderness of the Maverick lineup. That's how it boils down to.
The Wilderness has like skid plates and a lift and a gear change.
The Tremor has skid plates too, and like I said, you can do a lot of things with the rear differential. You can lock it. You can lock the 4-wheel drive in. There's all sorts of that's all there. But it's at the end of the day, you're still in a unibody truck that was not designed to do this. It can do this. I just feel like it's not the best tool for this job.
Okay,
it kind of feels like it's outside the job description of the Maverick. And speaking of outside the job description, the third version of the vehicle, and this is the one I spent the most time in, It's called the Lobo, Sammy. Do you know what Lobo means?
Like lobotomy.
Lobo means $35,000 Maverick. It's Spanish for wolf, El Lobo.
Yes.
Yeah. So once again, we have a new
Trim.
Yeah, instead of making a Maverick ST, they've made a Maverick Lobo. I'm fine
Okay.
with that. They're also
Yeah.
the Lobo has been a truck trim in Mexico for a long time for the F-150.
Yeah, I've always thought that was I've always known that and always thought that was so funny because it's a trim level of the F-150 that's just called the Ford Lobo, not the F-150 Lobo, but the Ford Lobo. And then they also have F-150s as well, which
And
is
it's
a funny
being-
thing too.
It's being brought to North America, I believe, next year. Or North America, sorry, to the United States and Canada. They're going to make an F-150 Lobo. But
How interesting.
the reason the Lobo kind of stands out is because it's a street truck, and we haven't had street trucks in forever. I want to say at least 15 years. Whenever the last Toyota X-Runner, the Tacoma X-Runner, disappeared,
Mhm.
I think that might have been our last street truck. I know that Ram kind of made a Ram 1500 Sport that was street oriented as well. But
Man, I forgot these trucks so much. They're so, and the original Lightning.
yeah, but that's much farther
Much-
longer
yes.
ago. That's 20 years. So the street trucks were really a 90s thing
S10.
that bled over into the early 2000s and then disappeared. The Lobo is interesting for a couple of reasons. The drivetrain is the same as every other EcoBoost. Under the hood, you have a 250 horsepower, 277 pound-feet of torque from a 2-liter turbo. There's no difference in the motor whatsoever.
Okay.
There is a difference in the transmission. So instead of having 8 speeds like every other automatic version of the EcoBoost from the Maverick, it has 7 speeds.
Weird.
And it's actually the 8-speed transmission. It's not mechanically different. What they did was remove the third gear from the equation. So when you're shifting, it just goes 1, 2, 4 instead of 1, 2, 3. And the reason for that is because the RPM gap between second and third is only like 500 RPM. And Ford was realizing that in a performance situation, you would probably run up against the red line really quickly and just have to, it has paddle shifters. You'd have to shift very fast to not hit the rev limiter and kind of be upset with yourself. So by skipping the third gear, it adds 1,000 RPM of headroom so that when you're doing performance stuff, that's the whole idea. There's also the same rear end that you find in the Tremor. It's called the RDU. I don't remember what that stands for. It's a torque vectoring rear end, and in the Tremor, it's designed for off-road stuff. In the Lobo, it's designed to help get you around the corners and put the power down a little bit better. There's like a Lobo drive mode that prioritizes performance and sets everything up for you to essentially corner better than you would in a regular EcoBoost. You can also turn off all of the stability control. I ended up on an autocross course with this vehicle in the rain, and I turned everything off and I was able to slide it around. It will actually do that. And I didn't get any correction from the stability control, the traction control. So I appreciated that. The shifting, I pretty much just kept it in second gear. What's interesting about the EcoBoost engine, and you notice this more on the road than you do on an autocross, the acceleration isn't fantastic. I think it's still like 7 seconds or something to 60. It just kind of, the power is there, but it's, you know how I've always disliked the Mustang EcoBoost because it has horsepower, but it's not fun. Like, it's not engaging. There's nothing about that motor that makes you want to wring it out. I find that the Lobo is similar in that way.
Okay.
Not in the sense that it's boring. I don't find it boring, but I do find that the engine, it's workmanlike. It's like, here's your power. It's not peaky. It's not, you're going to get there eventually. It feels not as responsive as a real performance vehicle would. And I think that this isn't fair, but I feel like the Lobo is probably 100 horsepower away from being a truly engaging vehicle to drive.
Wow. 100 is a lot, man.
But on a Turbo 4, it's not. I feel like that power is in there, and I think the aftermarket could cook that up, or Ford might release some type of upgrade package like they've done with a lot of their turbocharged four-cylinder engines. So I'm intrigued by that aspect. I feel like Ford kind of wants the Lobo to be a bit of a blank slate for people with their performance. It's a half inch lowered in the front and 1.1 inches lower in the back. It averages out to about 0.8 inches lower than a regular Maverick.
Okay.
The suspension, I think it has monotubes. So handling wise, like when I was on that track, it never really felt out of control. It pushes like any kind of front wheel drive oriented platform like this, even though it's an all wheel drive system. It'll push if you get it a little bit out of shape or you carry too much speed in the corners. But on the street, you don't notice that. On the street, it does feel pretty good. And even over bumpy pavement, it's not super rough. Like I think that the Maverick Lobo should really be looked at as a handling package with potential for a drivetrain rather than a true sport truck. And I think it's cool to have this vehicle. Like, I'm glad it exists. It's a little bit anonymous stylistically. It has these kind of cool turbofan wheels, which are unique. But the rest of the truck, it has a body kit, but nowhere on it does it say Lobo. Like, if you look at the Tremor, the Tremor says Lobo. The Tremor says Tremor everywhere. And on the inside, the Tremor has like Tremor on the headrests and stuff, on the seats embroidered in. The only place you see Lobo on the Lobo is the little, at the front of every Maverick, there's like it looks like a fake vent on the front fender. And it'll say like XLT or Tremor or whatever. And it says Lobo there, but it's like black on black. You'd have to get really close to see it. And the interior is different. It has some contrasting stitching on the seats and like a little bit of a spray pattern graphics on the seats. But it doesn't say Lobo. Like, and there's no wolf anywhere. Like, where's the wolf? I said to Ford, like, you're really, the engineer I was talking to, I'm like, you're really missing an opportunity to have like a big Lobo button on the console. And you just smash that button and a wolf goes like, and then like it goes into full performance mode, and like maybe nitrous blasts out of the windshield wiper nozzles, like there's a purge or something.
Yeah, of course. I think we're gonna get a whole wolf packs and everything like that for sure. They're gonna be
super cool.
The Lobo, I mean, the Maverick was this whole thing built around, I think there was a bit of customization with the first gen or the first years of the Maverick when it came out.
Sure. Like, Ford saw aftermarket companies getting in on people slamming their Mavericks, and they said, we want that money.
I love that. I mean, street trucks is such a culture, right? Like, it's such a cool thing to have on the street to see. And that's a person who cares about what they're driving and what they're doing. And to have that represented back again by the automaker, I think is a worthwhile addition. I don't think this is something we should discourage.
No, I'm glad that they're doing it. I'm glad that someone's making a silly truck.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the case. We were talking about, hot hatches a little while ago, and how like goofiness and charm. Goofiness is part of the charm. Being like different and weird is part of it. And
it's different and interesting for sure.
Absolutely.
The problem is, if you want to do truck stuff, you're going to be handicapped by the Lobo. It can't get that 4,000 pound towing package that I was talking about before.
Okay, yeah,
it's just not available.
So what is it limited to?
2,000 pounds.
Oh, that's not good. Okay,
and it hauls 500 pounds less in the bed than a regular EcoBoost truck.
500.
Yeah, so you're down to 1,045 pounds of payload capacity. I'm assuming a lot of that has to do with suspension geometry.
Yeah, most likely.
It's unfortunate.
I guess.
Oh, I forgot to mention it has one of the different grills, and the grill on the Lobo really reminds me of, like, remember Mansory? Yeah, or like maybe Maybach. It has like kind of a weird scallop.
Too much body, like way too much body work.
No, just the grill. Like, the grill is
reminiscent. No, I know, but like the grills just get covered by body. No,
they have you've seen these
or
vehicles,
too much
right?
Grill. Sorry,
it just has a grill that looks like their grill. It's neither too much or too little. It's just stylistically similar. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the 2025 Maverick. I mean, it's interesting to see the Maverick family grow. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to see how serious they get about making the Lobo a real performer in the future.
Okay,
and I don't really see the point of the Tremor. I wish this truck was cheaper across the board. I mean, yeah, charge us more for the EcoBoost models, but that hybrid is sweet because it's cheap, because it's a value version of the truck. Even give me like a fleet model if I have to pay less. Like, I'll be okay with that. I just want to, everyone, when the Maverick came out, was like, oh, finally a truck that just does truck stuff, and like it's kind of a stripper model and we don't have to worry about luxury. And now it's all of that, but with a price that suggests maybe it's not.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Apparently, also, I just found this story that there's a dealer memo going around saying the base Maverick price has increased by $1,150 in the United States due to tariffs. It's now at $30,000 for a base model. This is different from what I'm seeing on the site for building the truck, so I don't know what people are actually encountering out in the wild when they're buying.
That's this pricing thing is really, it's going to get people. I don't know. It's going to get people in trouble financially, I think.
I don't want to get too much into tariff talk. If that's okay.
Okay, sure. I just think that it's a really difficult position that a lot of consumers are put into.
So just putting a number on the amount of money, this truck came out in 2022, and since 2022, 3 years, the price has increased $8,150.
Yeah. That's a huge increase, man.
Most of that is is for the 2025 model year. That's the one that's soaked up the most.
Okay.
I think the price in 2024 was $23,900 in the US for a base model. And now it's $26,900. So that's a lot.
Let's change gears and talk about what I drove this past week, if you're okay with that.
Which doesn't have gears at all.
No, it does not. You apparently read the show notes before jumping on the call. I drove the 2025 Porsche Macan 4 electric, and
it's 4 electric, as in like FOR electric, or
it should be, maybe no, just the number 4, Porsche Macan 4 EV.
Okay.
This is a car that starts at $99,000 in Canada and is $80,000 in the US.
That is a lot of money.
It is, yeah. It's many Lobos. That should be our new. I like that.
I think the gas Macan starts at like 57 or something.
Yeah, it blows my mind. The base Macan EV is $77,000 in the US, and that's a lot of money for a base product. Especially, I think the Macan used to be basically the Porsche entry level product, and as you mentioned, the gas product is around the $50,000 mark. So to add almost 50% more, a little less than 50% more to the price, is that decent math? It may be closer to 40%. Just for the electric model, that seems like a lot. That seems like a ton. But I didn't know what I was expecting, because personally, I've been really impressed with Porsche's electric vehicles. I thought the Taycan was one of my favorite EVs that I've ever driven. Although it's been a few years since I drove it, maybe 1 or 2 years since I drove it, but it left a long impression a long-lasting impression on me, which was, this is what a premium EV should feel like, in that it had tons of range, it charged really fast, and it was enjoyable to drive. It was fast, it was versatile, and it felt premium. It felt like precise. Did that translate into a somewhat more affordable SUV format? I'm going to say yes.
Really? Because it so really does.
I'm going to say that it did. This is slightly smaller size-wise.
Now, when you say more affordable, this is still a 6-figure vehicle.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's why I mean slightly affordable. I guess somebody who wasn't going to buy a Taycan. Oh no, I've lost my pronunciation key. Somebody who wasn't going to buy a Taycan could afford a Macan EV instead. And the range really caught me off guard. I got into this thing, and I'm going to talk about kilometers for a quick second, because I don't have the mileage in front of me.
I'll try to math it out for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I got in it, and it said I would have over 500 kilometers of range on a full charge.
So that's like 350 miles.
And that blew my mind. I thought that is something that I would not have expected from a mainstream, like any of the mainstream EVs.
Well, I think an Ioniq 6 is 448 or something. It's
not 500.
It's a 10% difference.
That's decent, man.
Okay, but you're paying $40,000 more.
I was caught off guard by that. And not only that, I actually think it was super conservative about it, because no matter what I did, it seemed like every trip took less miles or less kilometers off that ticker than it should have. So,
Sami?
Yes?
Is it possible that the Porsche Macan
is lying to me?
Was lying to you?
I don't think so. I really don't.
It just wanted you to like it so much.
If I just feed him this one,
Macan
really
needs
simple,
a friend.
Yes.
All 4 friends. 4 EV friend.
4 EV friend. It was really interesting that I was impressed with the efficiency. I was happy as well. I got to take it to a fast charger that actually utilized its charging speed. I got well over 100 kilowatt charging speed at this.
That's
at
amazing.
This charger. I was
I can't
very
remember
happy with that.
I can't remember the last time I saw that.
Yeah, I was super happy. I mean, I think the thing could go up to 250, but it only gave me like 130 or something, and I was happy. I was out of there in like 11 minutes or 20 minutes or something. 11, 15 minutes.
That's nuts. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of times, but we'll just move on.
Sorry, somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes.
11, 15, 20 20 minutes. I was
on a phone call for the duration. I should just check the length of that
phone call was 36 minutes.
But those are all the elements of the EV that I was really impressed with. I was like, so as an electric vehicle, Porsche still has this working really well for them. I was really curious, right? That could be achieved, or if it was just a platform thing, that this was just based, just the Taycan could pull it off, because that's shared with an Audi. What's it called? e-tron GT. But this thing just the technology is sound from my experience there. The powertrain also pretty decent, although I don't think I got to fully utilize it. Because I always find that with some vehicles, especially EVs, I don't want to push them too much, because I don't want to see that range disappear really drastically when I have somewhere to go.
Are you intimidated by the range?
Of course. I mean, range anxiety is real, especially when I don't have a level 2 charger like you do, right?
Well, you could have a level 2 charger though.
Yeah, I could.
You have a home.
Thanks for reminding me of these wonderful things that I mean, there are things that I think need to be addressed in my home before the level 2 charger goes in.
No, I strong disagree.
Wow. I think I need a roof, to be honest. Those are expensive. Have you seen how much a roof is?
Yeah, I bought a roof 4 years ago. I know exactly how much a roof costs.
It's expensive. Anyways, it has 402 horsepower in this Macan 4 format. Plenty, really plenty. It could get up to speed really easily. It maintained its speed really nicely. I was happy with those two elements. Things that I'm going to be blunt about that I didn't love about the vehicle. The interior is simply okay. I even had like a fairly customized version of it. Are
we talking like Maverick okay? Or like, what are we talking here?
Yeah, no, I'm talking like BMW. It was just like as good as, let's say, a BMW.
Okay.
But this is a car that's much more expensive than, let's say, an electric version of a 3 Series.
What about an iX, right? Though?
No, iX, I think, has a really cool interior. This did not have that.
So Porsche's kind of dropping the ball.
I mean, they have their like Porsche's sense of what premium is different than what I think other luxury brands are. It's
the gas Macan is not super impressive inside.
Yeah, to me, it's about like a feeling of like precision. Like it's just like everything is where it's supposed to be, and that's it. And the materials are what you get. They're comfortable. They fit nicely. Some of the parts I don't like is that there is a touch panel for a couple of functions that, like, when you press them, the whole panel kind of moves.
Yeah, that really bothers me as well. I understand what you're saying.
And it just doesn't feel fancy in any way. It doesn't feel like, and it just feels like wobbly. Like it's like I'm now driving a Nissan Ariya, and it has like a haptic feedback area as well for touch controls. And the way they respond to you just feels a little bit better than it would in the Macan. I think that's really a big game changer. I also found the charge ports to be very interesting. It has two, just like the Taycan, and unlike the Taycan, these ones, at least the one on mine, were not like motorized in any way. This is only funny because you told me that people you've been talking to have had issues or have been joking about their sliding.
No, in a joke. That morning I had been at a Porsche fleet location where they had a Macan EV with a sliding charge door that I witnessed.
Yeah, I didn't have that. I had two.
And it's proximity based, so like you get close to it and it just opens.
Yeah. Okay. So this is funny. So I saw that there's two. I opened the one that was closest to me, and I used that plug for level 2 charging. And then I was like, I wonder what the other one, is used for, because I saw
full of snakes, just a door to Snake World.
Yeah. And it wouldn't open. And I was like, well, that's weird. Maybe it's like a holdover or something. No, it turns out that when one panel is opened, the other one locks.
What if you want a dual charge?
Yeah, I suppose that's exactly what it's trying to stop you from doing.
It's called AKA the butterfly.
So I was like very weirded out by that. I was like, is something broken? And then I found out later when you close one, you can open the other. And so one has the CCS adapter and the CCS port or the level 3 charging port, while the other one doesn't. And that's the major difference there.
What's the other one?
What do you mean?
Well, if one just
doesn't have that bottom part of the CCS port.
That's really strange.
Yeah.
Why? Why have 2 charging ports if not the same? I don't get it.
Like they're kind of this. How do I describe it? Like I use the one with the CCS port, but without using the bottom part of it. You know? Do you know what I'm saying? The CCS, the level 3 charger.
Yeah, it's the combined charging standard, but the combined part refers to the fact that it has the top and the bottom.
Yeah, so one side had the top and the bottom, and the other side just had the top.
So the other side is just for like level 2.
Yeah, or level 1. Yeah,
that's odd. It
really is weird.
Odd. Why
I
is
think
it
the Taycan
there?
does it. I think the e-tron GT has that as well.
I don't remember that from the e-tron GT.
I wonder if it's an architecture thing, because these are fast charging vehicles. I don't know. Maybe they need to put these fast charging bits on one side. I don't know.
It's the same port. There's no anyway. It's just odd. That would be like, I want to say it's almost like removing the ground from an electrical outlet, but it's not the same. It's not quite the same as that. So it's not really a fair comparison. It just seems weird to cripple one side of the vehicle and not the other. Just strange.
All right, I'll go and ask. Why not? Otherwise, I found the car to be, pretty good. I was happy in it. I think if you have this much money to spend on an EV, there's probably worse that you could do. And I think, I haven't been in as many BMW ones as you have. In fact, I really want to get my hands on the i4, for example. And I was supposed to pick up a Cadillac in the near future, but it got postponed for who knows what, which is probably not a good sign. But in terms of the overall experience, I think this Porsche Macan EV was really positive. I think it's easily one of the best premium electric crossovers out there.
Even at that price, even with that interior.
Yeah.
So you would recommend this then?
Yeah, so I think the only ones, if you would get something a little bit bigger with a BMW iX, which I do like. But I think a lot of people find the iX to be unattractive. Is that the best way to describe it?
I don't have a problem with the iX.
But I think the iX has less range.
Maybe. I don't know.
Let me double check here. Range up to 324. So a little bit less range.
Pretty much the same.
And there's also there's high performance versions of both the iX and the Macan.
What does a base Macan range give you?
I think I more or less was in the base Macan. Let me double check.
Didn't you say 4?
Or 4? Yes. There's a Macan EV,
and I think the base Macan EV is rear wheel drive.
Yes,
which is unusual.
Let's double check here. Macan 4 3. It's only rated for 308, which is wild. And that's it. They've only got 3 on the EPA website, which is the 4, 4S, and Turbo.
So just to put this in perspective, the Ioniq 9 will give you 3 rows with 320 miles of range.
There you go. For 50 grand, 60 grand?
Something like that, yeah. Actually, it might be a bit more expensive than that. It's a pretty large vehicle. Let me double check the pricing. No, so the base is 60, but it tops out at 79. So that puts you within 10 grand of this Macan.
I mean, I guess so.
But way more practical.
And way more size. Absolutely. I mean, that's the different classes entirely. Not every EV is meant to be. I mean, unless we're just talking about range.
Yeah, 422 horsepower in that.
But I mean, would I take this over, let's say, I know GV60 is probably much cheaper.
Yeah, it's way cheaper. How much horsepower in the Porsche?
402.
402. So less horsepower than this Hyundai.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just want to...
I guess. How much?
422 horsepower in the Hyundai.
But it's a much bigger vehicle.
If you get the rear-wheel drive model, it's 215 horsepower, but the all-wheel drive is 422.
215 on an EV on the Ioniq 9?
Yeah.
7? What is it called?
It's the Ioniq 9. So there's 215 for that base rear-wheel drive.
Can you imagine how slow that would be?
There's 2 all-wheel drive models. There's the S and the SE, and that's 303 horsepower. And then the performance all-wheel drive has 422.
I got to talk to somebody who was on this first drive. They must not have driven the 215 horse. I want to know who's driven a rear-wheel drive EV9 or Ioniq 9. I don't think those are real.
I've only driven the Ioniq 5 rear-wheel drive.
Yeah.
Which is like 225.
That's fine. They're smaller. That's a smaller car. But a 3-row SUV with 200 horsepower seems like a problem.
But don't forget, I'm sure the torque is high. I don't know what it is, but let me find out. I'm sure that makes up for some of it.
Anyways, I think I was.
No, actually, it doesn't. Oh, I don't know. It's a little weird. It's 516 pound-feet of torque for that performance model. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at a spec sheet from Hyundai, and 258 pound-feet for the rear-wheel drive model, but this is a spec sheet that says the horsepower for that same model is TBD. So, I don't know. There's a lot of TBD actually on this sheet.
Just like this podcast. Will there be one next week? TBD.
No, there will definitely be one next week.
I know. Not after this performance. Let's move on to the last car on this week's episode, which is what you drove.
A vehicle that you didn't want to talk about, but we're going to talk about.
I didn't want to talk about it. But I think you made a very compelling argument, which was I want to talk about it, yeah. And I said, you make a great point, Ben.
In addition to driving the Maverick, I also drove the Toyota Crown Signia, which is a vehicle that Sami was sort of lukewarm on because I believe you said it was essentially a Camry and that you would rather have a Camry. And I kind of disagree after experiencing it because to me, I know that so those who aren't familiar, the Crown Signia is Toyota got a little weird with the top of their lineup. Over the last couple of years, they got rid of the Avalon and they introduced 2 sort of SUVs, but they're really a sedan and a wagon that are sort of riding high, but not really. It's confusing. It's crossover world where everything goes and there are no rules. And you end up with the Toyota Crown and the Toyota Crown Signia.
Everything's a crossover, nothing is.
Yeah, exactly. So I drove the Signia, which is the wagon-like version, has the long roof, long flat roof. I think it looks great.
Long roofs. I forgot about this discussion.
I think it looks really good. It's a handsome vehicle. It's unusual looking, but the general proportions are nice. It's not super big like you might think it is. It's actually, I had it parked next to my Grand Wagoneer and they're like the same size pretty much, which is super weird to think about because it doesn't feel like that from behind the wheel.
Yeah.
It was practical. I hauled a bunch of stuff in it. There was decent cargo space. I didn't have any complaints about it's just general Toyota stuff. I find that their safety systems are intrusive in ways that others aren't, especially things like the driver attention monitor. Again, this is a complaint I've made before, but if you have an infotainment system that requires me to look away from the road for more seconds than your driver attention monitor will allow, that's a problem with your infotainment system. So I was frequently being scolded for trying to, change radio stations or do whatever with Android Auto. But other than that, my only real complaint about the Crown Signia was the drivetrain is kind of wheezy. I had the hybrid version of the vehicle, the regular hybrid, not the performance version, because I believe can you get what's it called?
No.
Grand hybrid? What's it called?
Hybrid Max.
Hybrid Max. You can get that in the regular Crown though.
Yeah.
But not in the Crown Signia.
Nope.
I think that's a bit of a mistake.
Yeah, 100%.
I would have liked that. The Crown version that I drove, it felt a little wheezy, a little bit loud sometimes with the CVT. I got 5 liters per 100 kilometers though.
That's very nice. That's like what, 400 mpg?
That's let me just double check. I want to say it's like in the high 30s.
I think it's nearly 40.
47 miles per gallon.
Yeah.
That feels like I drove 386 kilometers too, which is quite a bit. That's like, I don't know, 270 miles or something like that. So a pretty decent amount of driving.
You must have done that must have been like a quarter of a tank.
It was just over half, like not even.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like that's a big okay, I said earlier it's not that big, but these are numbers No, but these
now
are
Ben
numbers.
does the math. Real life of the car is not bad and gets super stoked. I like that.
When you look at what you normally think a 47 mile per gallon vehicle looks like, it generally doesn't look like a mid-size wagon.
I 100%, Ben, I'm not disagreeing with you on these aspects of the car. My problem with the Crown Signia was the price. That is too expensive.
I have no idea
a
what
car
it costs.
It's too expensive. It's so annoying sometimes. It's too expensive for a car that, again, does the same things that a Camry can do for half the price.
Can a Camry give me a long roof cargo area? It can't do that.
That's it. I guess not. But
I'm trying to find the price now. It is $43,000 US. The Camry, where does it start, Sammy? Camry starts at 28,000.
Yeah.
So that is a big difference. And also, so the other difference too is the regular, quote unquote, regular Crown, which they're positioned as a sedan on the website. It starts at 41. So there's still a big that's weird.
Yeah, I don't know if they should. I don't know. I keep thinking about this Avalon to Crown shift, and I think they blew it. I don't think they did a good job. I don't think they managed it very nicely.
Wait a couple years, get a Crown Signia on the used market. If you need something with good fuel, and most of my driving was highway.
Yeah.
So that's normally where hybrids aren't super great.
Yeah.
This was really great.
Like, I agree with you on this.
I'm super stoked by this fuel mileage in a vehicle this size and this useful, and it looks good too. It's obviously styling is subjective, but it doesn't look like other vehicles. It has its own kind of thing. I guess there's kind of like a Lexus-y crossover aspect to it.
Okay.
I know they're probably trying to lean on that. It's only rated at 39 miles per gallon city, 37 highway. So
you managed to get 10 more than that?
Vastly outperforming. It was really, really good with regenerative braking. Since I live in a hilly area, regen braking is good to me. Like
they must have changed you off of the winter tires by now, yeah?
Oh, of course. I drove from...
Of course? My press cars still have winter tires.
I'm surprised you have winter tires at all in Ontario, where it's not legally required.
Sure.
So driving from my house to the highway is about half an hour of driving. And that I got there without the fuel gauge really moving, which indicates just how much battery recapture I was able to get going up and down the hills.
Right.
There's no such thing as a free lunch, but the Crown Signia is pretty close.
It's not free, man. It's expensive.
No. I'm talking about the energy. Okay. The free energy. Again, as I mentioned, no idea what it costs. I looked and I instantly just threw my mind like a fishnet, Sammy.
Okay, but I mean, like I said, there's an element here. If you want that same, let's say, performance and space, you could get a RAV4.
No, no, I don't think these are comparable.
Why?
I think the interior is nicer in the Crown,
and
I think the styling is quite different.
But is it really worth that much more?
I'm not trying to say that.
Okay.
But if you want something different, look, I'm not arguing for people to go out and buy a new Crown Signia. I think you could probably get a good deal on it later on, because I don't think anyone knows what this is.
I don't think anyone bought one for there to be a deal on afterwards.
Yeah, so they're going to be rare. I like vehicles that are unusual. Mine had like a really cool copper paint on the outside and like a brown interior. Again, these are just things that are speaking to my heart. You'll have to deal with the regular Toyota frustrations when it comes to the safety systems that I mentioned, but it's a unique vehicle. We were just talking about, we're happy that the Lobo exists because it's kind of weird and goofy. Not goofy. It's not really the right word. It's silly. It's like you don't expect a performance truck. I feel like there are so few wagons on the market. I mean, didn't you say that this was like an Outback?
Yeah, I said that. I think I said something similar, which is I'm glad this thing exists.
And I disagreed with you, but now I'm agreeing with you. Changed my mind.
Really?
I don't know. I don't remember. I don't even remember how much this cost, and that was like literally 3 minutes ago.
I remember saying it's really cool that it exists, but my whole like love for it fell apart when I was like, is this really I think in Canada it was closer to 60 or 70 grand.
You want like a Crown Signia Wilderness, right? Like that's what we
No. But I agree with you. I think you're right. There's a few cars that like seem to make it, and they slip past like somebody who should have thought a little bit harder about it. Somebody was spending, their day was getting to them. Yeah, they just approve it. Sure, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Crown idea is baffling in a world where Lexus exists. Like that's, But I guess they didn't.
But I mean, if this is a Buick, it would be great.
But they didn't want the Camry to be the range topper. I don't know. Like that seems to be kind of the feeling behind it.
That's what I mean. I think. And when was the last time you drove one of the new generation Camrys? Have you driven?
It's been a while. I liked it, but
the new hybrid only ones.
Yeah.
It's a very good car, right? But you're right. The interior is totally different.
And it also doesn't have that cargo area.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is a way to like sneak into the SUV world without driving an identifiable SUV.
Yeah. I don't like that pricing. I just wish it was maybe, you said the price difference in the US is closer to like what, 1,500 or something, 15,000?
Yeah, it's like 15,000.
How much?
Yeah. I don't know. It was like 26 and 43, I think. So that's nearly 20,000. But Sammy, let me ask you this:
if that price difference was any narrower, I'd fall for this car a little bit.
Would you buy a $43,000 Maverick or a $43,000 Crown Signia?
Holy moly! Yeah, I guess you got me there.
I really would like this a lot more if it had the better hybrid drivetrain. I think that then maybe the price would make more sense.
Yeah, that's okay. So then we're talking, right? We need to have something for that price.
But we're getting the fuel mileage instead of that. Like it's one of the.
But every other car has that fuel mileage.
Every other car you drive has 47 miles per
gallon.
Every
other Toyota can get that. Every other Toyota hybrid can get that fuel mileage.
I don't know, man.
I think so.
I don't think you're getting that in like a Highlander. Are you?
Okay, fine. Maybe not a Highlander.
Yeah.
Fine. You got me.
I did. You're not getting it in a GR Super Hybrid.
You're not getting it in the Crown Hybrid Max.
Yeah.
Or whatever the plug-in Lexuses are called now.
Hybrid Max. All right. I think that's everything for this week.
You don't have anything else you didn't know anything about? Like the pricing of a car?
No.
Okay. Well, that's fair. Yeah, that's the end of this week's episode. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I really encourage you to head on over to our website, unnamedautomotivepodcast.com, where you can find our entire back catalog of episodes, all 406 of them.
Something like that.
I make up that last number every time, but I know the first one is a 4 and the second one is a 0, maybe.
It's a moving target.
Yeah. Tons of episodes to listen to, tons of great jokes between me and Ben, lots of arguments as to what's a better car, and lots of, unstopped rambling between one and the other.
Kind of like right now.
Yeah. Additionally, I really encourage you, after you go to our website, to check out the contact button on the website. You fill out a little form there. It hits our inbox, and we get to talk about it. We get to bring up any really great points that you have on our next episode, which is something we love to do. In fact, we really love listening from our listeners. Even if you don't have a question or a point, if you just want to say, hey, Ben's right about Lobo buttons in a car, themed after a wolf.
Oh! You could theoretically make it like a fuzzy button too. Like not real fur because that's cruel, but like a normal kind of like a faux fur button.
They're relying on the 3D printing market to take care of this.
You can't 3D print fur yet?
Can you? I think you might be able to.
I don't know. I'm out of the loop.
Additionally, you can reach out to us on social media. You can find Ben at Hunting Benjamin. You can find me at Sami_ha. That's on Instagram.
Yeah, I was going to say, where just like type it into the wilderness.
On Blue Sky. Ben, you're really hunting me down this episode, man. On Blue Sky, you can find at Hunting Benjamin. That's Ben. And you can find me at Sami_ha, like you're laughing. Next week, we're going to talk about, I've got the Nissan Ariya. That's what I've been driving recently. Ben, what are you driving?
I'm going to be talking about as I mentioned, I'm driving the Santa Cruz XRT, which is like the wilderness version of the Santa Cruz. So I'll be discussing that.
Is wilderness now the de facto, like, that's the standard we use for
it's the
off-road?
Bar. It used to be Jeep, and now it's wilderness. Sorry, Jeep. You've been punked by Subaru, I guess.
That's so funny. Okay, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Bye.